We talked about tariffs. Tariffs is one of the issues driving a wedge between the US and its allies, a topic likely to be at the fore of the Munich Security Conference this weekend. The organizers have already labeled President Trump as the leading demolition man of world order. Remember last year in Munich, this from the Vice President.
The threat that I worry the most about vis-a-vis Europe is not Russia, it's not China, it's not any other external actor. And what I worry about is the threat from within, the retreat of Europe from some of its most fundamental values, values shared with the United States of America.
Now, this was all followed up with the national security strategy in November. Michael Froman is there in Munich. Michael, this is a document I know that you've read closely. You've also followed gently and more. But the reality is, when you're at Munich, there is the US view on the world, and there is everybody else, or most of everybody else, and a very large gap in between.
Well, there is, and you know, if we just roll back the calendar a few weeks, we saw what happened in Davos, where the whole agenda was sort of captured and hijacked on the issue of Greenland. So everyone is here in Munich anticipating, well, what will be the dominant issue here? Will it be a follow-up to Vice President Vance's criticism of the threat within? Will it be around NATO, Ukraine, European security, and the European project, the importance of reform and consolidation in areas like defense, and what will it mean for the broader transatlantic relationship?
What do you gauge as the health of the transatlantic relationship? Give me a brutally honest assessment.
Well, look, I think, first of all, I think the president has raised some legitimate issues, for example, around European commitment of resources to its own defense. And Europe has responded quite well. Long way to go to make sure not only that they're spending more money, but that they're spending it well. They're spending it on the things that matter. And that's going to require some very hard decisions within Europe about consolidating some of their defense projects so that they're not siloed. You know, on the other hand, I think particularly the conflict or the dispute over Greenland really shook up the transatlantic relationship when Europe thought that there was even the possibility, which ultimately the president took off the table, of the US using military action to take Greenland, to take territory from a fellow NATO ally. I think that's what's lingering is now that that has been taken off the table, can NATO move forward?
Is Ukraine, are they going to reach agreement on Ukraine? The problem seems to be, the longer you talk, Russia just has the meat grinder ability to keep feeding the machine that eventually they believe will overwhelm Kyiv. Now, it's almost like whilst everybody's talking, they're losing in a sense. Is there any urgency there?
There isn't enough urgency, certainly, and that's one of the important things about this conference is, will Ukraine be put back at the center of the agenda? I mean, you're right, Richard. Russia has some tremendous advantages in terms of being willing to put men and women at risk and put material support behind this war. But they've been fighting for 4 years, and they've only taken about 20% of Ukraine. And so they're not winning the war. Now the question is, can Ukraine win the war, or can Ukraine change the calculation that Putin faces so that he comes to the table more seriously? And a lot of that will come down to, what does the security arrangement look for Ukraine going forward?
Okay, now, the Carney speech at Davos. Privately, leaders will tell you left, right and center, it was just what needed to be said. A dose of reality, the emperor's new clothes, the reality now. But it also gives cause for this global reality, this variable reality that Carney calls, where countries will do deals with different countries depending on the necessity of the alliance. You're going to see a lot of that variable reality at Munich.
I think that's right. I mean, a year ago, I talked about how we were heading towards a polyamorous world where countries would have relations with other countries on various issues. And sometimes they'd be with the US, sometimes they might work with China, sometimes they'd work among the middle powers. And so I think we're going to see a much more complicated international environment than we've seen before. And the question will be what role the U.S. plays in that. You know, I think if you look back over the last week or two, the U.S. convened a ministerial in Washington on critical minerals and had something like 40 or 50 countries represented there. So the U.S. is not disengaging. I don't think the Trump administration can be accused of being isolationist. They are just engaging in a fundamentally different way than we've ever engaged before.
Good to see you, sir. Thank you. Have a good Munich, as they say. And thank you for taking the time. It's late at night for you, but thank you for talking to us tonight.